Howdy folks, Little John. It's not quite a 5 on a Friday, it's actually late Thursday afternoon, coming into Thursday evening. I'm home, the missus is out, so when I'd normally be sitting down having a bit of a chat to her and a cuppa and whatnot, I've got a bit of spare time. Tomorrow's going to be pretty busy day, Friday, so I thought I might sit down and get a quick chat knocked out while I'm having a bit of a drink. So I'm out in the brewery. I'm trying a little bit of Little John's first loose fireball type of whiskey. It's a bourbon with a bit of cinnamon and vanilla steeped in it, and I'm also trying a little bit of my overproof rum as well. I'm trying to straighten now, mixing them with this new stuff, the 1893 Pepsi. It's ginger cola. I didn't try it on its own, so I don't know what it's actually like by itself, but this is the first crack I've had at it. But I've mixed it in with the bourbon and the rum, and it's going alright. So anyway, what I want to chat about today is gravity, and not that force that stops us all from falling off the planet, but specific gravity, what it is, what it means, what it tells you with your brew, and how to bit more hopefully help people understanding it a little bit more. It pops up all the time on forums and discussions, the Facebook pages. You know, my brews at this point, it's stopped. It's at 10:16. It should be, the instructions are telling me it should be 10:06 or 10:08. Is my brew stuffed? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And again, this is what I'm saying. This is where it's this having an understanding of what the gravity is and what it means, so you can look at the numbers you get with your beer and have a better understanding of what it means and what it's telling you. Now, specific gravity is, in a nutshell, it's a measurement of the amount of dissolved solids in a liquid. For the most part in brewing, it's loosely referring to the amount of sugar there is available in the liquid, initially in wort, and at the end, well, still wort, how much you have left over. And as we all know, yeast eats sugar, creates alcohol. So as your gravity drops, you're replacing it with alcohol, and that's how we measure how much alcohol there is in your beer. By taking one away from the other and working out the difference and calculating it out and getting how much alcohol there is in your brew. But gravity does a hell of a lot more than just tell us how much alcohol we've put in our brew. Now, you'll hear and see several references to gravity. As I said, its technical scientific term is SG, specific gravity, and that refers to any measurement of that dissolved solid in the liquid gives you a specific gravity reading. And it's measured, we discussed, this has been on video before, I'm not going to go into big detail, but it's measured with one of these bits of gear, a hydrometer. It can be measured with a refractometer as well, but right now for this discussion it's not really a matter of how it's read, it's what it represents. But this is technically and generally the instrument you will use to check what your gravity reading is. So when you're first making your brew up, you take your initial reading, and it's often referred to as OG, original gravity. Some people confuse SG with meaning starting gravity, which it doesn't. It's specific. Specific meaning it's the amount of gravity at any particular time when you take that reading. So in brewing we tend to refer to OG being the original gravity that your wort has come to before you've added yeast. So there's been no conversion of that sugar to alcohol. Your FG, which is your final gravity or your finished gravity, is where your wort slash beer is when it's finished brewing. So the yeast has done its job, it's eaten all the sugar it's going to, produced all the alcohol it will, and that's what you've got left. And that reading can tell you a few different things, and that's what I'm going to sort of discuss a little bit, what those readings actually mean. Now, your initial gravity obviously varies from beer to beer. It depends on exactly what you're doing. The more sugar you put in the beer, the higher the gravity. If you want a higher alcohol beer, you need to start with a higher gravity. We're not too worried about that because that's not an issue. I mean, you put stuff together, you measure it, you start off, you got your gravity. You start off at, whatever. So, say just for example, you grabbed a tin of Cooper's Cerveza. It was on special bullies. You couldn't help yourself. I can play around that, you thought. So you got your can of Cerveza. You grabbed a bag of dextrose. And you bung that in the fermenter. And you get somewhere around 1038 OG. Or SG or OG. Depending on how you want to look at it. Now, that brew is going to ferment down to a particular level, and that OG, it depends on the attenuation level of your yeast. And just in a nutshell, yeast will only attenuation level, it's a percentage of the sugars that are available in the wort that the yeast will eat. In a very broad sense, yeast will consume 75% of available sugars across the board. Now that will vary depending on the yeast style. Some yeast will push out to about 78, some will drop down as low as 66%, depending on the kind of yeast it is and what sort of style it's used for. You can get higher, but it's pretty unusual for a beer yeast, and I'm not talking a specific yeast that's made for beer production, going higher than about 78%, without some playing around with it. But anyway, so you've got that at 1030. You started at 1030. For the sake of easy numbers, let's say you're at 1040 when you're starting. 1.040 specific gravity on your hydrometer. You pitch your yeast, and 4 days later you take a gravity reading. Now it's going to be, if you're at a reasonable temperature range and you're under control after 4 days, you're probably looking somewhere around 1.20, 1.22. Well, it won't quite be finished, but we're getting pretty close after a couple of days. It's going to, but it will keep going. Now, those readings on the way just simply show that you're working your way down, and temperature control, type of yeast and stuff like that will have an effect on how quickly that comes down. But we can assume fairly close to the mark that brew starting at 1040 is going to finish at 1010. That's 75% attenuation. 75% of 40 is 30, which leaves 10 points of gravity behind. Right? So you expect that to get to 1010. Now, this is where we can have some problems with particularly newer brewers who are sort of trying to get their heads around how this all works. A lot of instructions with these cans, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to actually have it on the outside of this tin, it won't say, but plenty of brewers are still getting it. When you're looking for instructions on kit brews, a lot of them will tell you you're going to finish at 1.006. It is possible. Again, it depends on exactly, it is possible with that particular can. And what throws in the mix is that you get these hydrometers and they have this little green tab here at the bottom which says this is where your beer should finish. Don't know how well that will come up, but it's a tiny little band, and it actually sits on this hydrometer. between 1 nothing, and 1004, maybe creeping down to a 5. Now let me tell you, I've only had 2 beers in all the years I've brewed beer actually finish anywhere near that, in that range, and both of those beers have been brewed with dry enzyme. Subject we're not getting into today, but I've never had a normal beer finish that low. This brew could possibly finish at 1.006 if I push it out maybe 24 litres and start a little bit lower, but I'm expected to finish around that 75% mark. 100, well, 1010, 1010. Right? Now, this is where ingredients start to influence your gravity at the bottom end. Okay? As I said, you start at the top, they start higher. So if you start at 10, you got a 1060 brew instead of 1040, your 75% attenuation is only going to bring you back down to 1015 as a finished gravity. And that's working on having an awful lot of fermentable sugars. This is the next step. That 75% attenuation is based on having a highly fermentable wort. If you start adding things into that wort which aren't as fermentable, then you're going to change what your gravity can get to. Dextrose, plain old white table sugar, is about 90% fermentable. So you put a kilo of that in your brew, it's going to turn 90% of that into alcohol, essentially. It's not that simple, but it's going to convert 90% of that into byproducts and leave 10% in your beer. That 10% that's left in your beer is what gives you your final gravity reading and leaves some in there. So you combine a little bit of gravity that's left in the malt from this process, and this is a very light beer. It hasn't got much body, so it's highly fermentable to start with. This is highly fermentable together. They're both very fermentable. So this can get down quite low, and this is where you do push into that 78% range, and even sneak into 80%. And you can get down to your 1006, 1008 without too much bloody issue. But if you take that and then throw in, say, even just a simple box of brewing sugar, which is dextrose and maltodextrin, then you're in a whole different place. Because 40% of that brew, 40% of what you're putting in there is maltodextrin, which is unfermentable. Doesn't ferment at all. So you've gone from 10% not fermenting to 10% of your 60% dextrose and the complete amount of your 40%. So essentially, you're at 46% of that's not fermentable. So 460 grams of that sugar stays behind in your brew. 100 grams of that stays behind. That's gravity points right there. So suddenly, this brew is going to finish at 10:13, 10:14. I'm not going to finish at 10:10. And again, with the service, mostly 10 to 10:09. But you've picked up a couple of points in extra gravity at the end. And the same when you're using your dry malt, you're going to get a fairly similar result to the brewing sugar when you use pure malt. Pure malt's about 60-65% fermentable. So at the end of the day, you get a very similar gravity between, a dextrose and maltodextrin blend as you do with just pure malt. This will give you a far better beer, but you're going to get a similar sort of gravity at the end. Alright? So you're a few points higher than what you expect. Now you start throwing in something different. Instead of a cerveza, but you're throwing down a real ale. This is a bigger beer, it's heavier, it's got more body. More body means more sugar. So this is not going to ferment as much as that. Now I'm not going to even try to go with numbers what these are, because I haven't looked at them and I really don't give a rat's what they are. I've never really been interested, right? I know what they finish off at. That beer is going to finish, top of my head, loose figures, 3 to 4 points higher gravity than a beer with that, made with the same ingredients. If you fermented those cans just on their own, that's going to come out several points higher, just by itself. So, if you're used to brewing the cerveza, and it's coming out at 1008 because you use nothing but dextrose or table sugar, and suddenly you step up to a real ale and you brew it with some dry malt, you potentially, 4, 5, even 6 points higher on your final gravity, just by making those changes. But you're still expecting them to come out at, you expect them to come out the same as this, because that's what your beer normally does. It's not going to. It will not do it. So you need to be aware of that when you're putting your beer together, how much unfermentable stuff you're putting in. Now, let's take this another level. Let's say these cans are a stout. More unfermentable stuff in the can. Or it's actually probably fairly similar to the real ale, but not a hell of a lot different. But you're certainly adding more unfermentables. You're going to go with malt. You're not adding sugar, pardon me, to a stout. You're going with malt. Right? So you might be creeping up to that, I said that 10, 15, 10, 16 mark without any problem at all. And brewers, left, right and centre, absolutely freaking out of their heads because their beer's at 10-16. It's gone for 6 days. That's at 10-16, it hasn't moved. My beer's ruined. Your beer's not ruined. Your beer's doing exactly what it should have done. It's right where it should be. You panicked about it. Because you haven't allowed for unfermentables. And as your beer get bigger, that number starts to rise. As I said, at 1060, 1015 is your bottom, really getting bottom range. So you see guys, the brews are stopping at 1022. That is not uncommon. Not uncommon at all, especially for bigger beers. Just an example. Just very quickly, last year, wedding day the Imperial Porter I did for this young bloke's wedding. It finished at 1018. It's a 9% beer. Yeah. It attenuated, actually attenuated really well. But that's really pushing as far as that beer was going to go. If you take this stuff another step and bring in either grain and partial mashes into this kit scenario, then you're bringing even more unfermentables in. Grain itself, even base grain, is not as fermentable as your sugars, and in partials you're quite often just steeping in mid to high 60s. You're not doing the things you need to make that liquid, the sugars that are coming off that grain, nice and fermentable. So you get left with unfermentable stuff. You start bringing in specialty grains, crystal grains, they're all but unfermentable completely. You get very little out of them. You don't get a lot of sugar out of them to start with, but what you do get out doesn't ferment. It's purely flavour and body, and it's there for character. So you throw a couple of hundred grams of a crystal malt in, it might sneak your gravity up by 1 or 2 points. Your final gravity, and that's where you start. You see, you start sneaking in these 18 degree, 118s, 119s. Then you factor in mash temperatures, which all have an effect. I mean, let me tell you, Coopers is mashing that at the bloody good low temperature when they're making it. So it is highly fermentable. And I'll be surprised if their stout's not done much the same. I've tasted it. Well, I haven't actually made one myself, but I have assisted a fellow brewer to brew one, and it's amazingly thin and bloody watery. So they are done at a very low temperature to make them very fermentable, so you can access that alcohol easily. But when you start putting these things together, and you are making changes and having effect on that final gravity, it is going to be higher. So you need to be aware of it. When you're looking at your brew, look at what you've got in there. And go, okay, well, hang on, this is fermentable. That's not quite as fermentable. That's a bit less. I'm not going to get 10-10. You can do your numbers. You got 10-40 beer. You've steeped a little bit of grain, a little bit of specialty. You've put malt in it. It's reasonable to say that I'm not going to get I'm not going to get 75% attenuation. I might get 73, 74. So I might sit on 10, 11, 10, 12. But then look at the other thing. Look at all those things that are in there, and each little one, it might be a point, might be 2 points in each one, and that can add up pretty quickly to 3, 4, 5, 6 points, and that can be a big difference. But the biggest thing you've got to initially get your head around, especially if you're a newer brewer, is that when these instructions tell you you're going to get 1.06, or your bloody hydrometer itself tells you that beer's going to finish in that little green, it's not going to. It is just not going to finish there. All but rare brews are not going to finish there. It just doesn't happen. It's not. You don't have the ingredients and the setup and everything in the right measures to do that. You're gonna beers generally finish in that 10-10 to 10-16 sort of range. So for the most part, unless you're pushing big volumes, like big ABVs initially, and big gravities, and a lot of extra ingredients, you're generally finishing in that range fairly safely. There are factors that will have an influence. If you've got bad yeast health, you're going to struggle to get down to those numbers. If you don't aerate, you're going to struggle to get to those numbers. Temperature itself can affect getting to those numbers. But all your parameters being good, good yeast pitch, good aeration, temperature control, you are going to get within you generally will get in the attenuation range of your yeast. You've got to look at that. What does my yeast say I'm going to get to? USA 5 generally says 72 to 75%. You occasionally will go above it, you occasionally go under. But for the most part, with good process, you're going to land in that range somewhere. So be aware of that when you are looking at your brew and calculating what you're expecting to finish at. Okay, calculators are really good. There's plenty of good calculators getting around. If you're on a couple of the websites or Facebook pages, look up Ian's kit and extract spreadsheet if you're doing kits. It's really good, and it's really accurate. It's very accurate. I used it quite a lot when I went back and was doing kits, and found it to be really, really close. There's plenty of calculators online for all grain. You can use those as well, and same thing. Putting in all your parameters, they will generally get you very close to where you're meant to be. Okay. Another thing you got to really be aware of: if you are following somebody else's recipe, it can be quite common to finish with a really reasonably different final gravity. Water, chemicals, pH can have a big influence on how things work in your brew. So taking someone else's recipe and using it and expecting to get exactly the same gravity can be a bit iffy because it's quite often not going to happen. It's pretty rare you're going to hit the same. Your mashing techniques are going to be different no matter how much you follow things closely. Okay. But the most important thing with your gravities, when you are checking it, make sure you're getting it steady over several days. Good ferment. Go back and watch the video on fermentation itself. Follow a good fermentation process. Get your readings over a couple of days. Good steady gravity in a range you're expecting. You're good to go. Okay. As always, you got any questions, any comments, stick them down the bottom. You know, if you want to make jokes about there's no such thing as gravity, that sucks, stuff like that, go for it. If you want to clarify anything, nasty comments, good. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the button down there and subscribe. Come along and get stuff sorted out. Yeah, you'll get notified when video comes up. When we're chatting about things and when we're playing around. So, but that's me, Little John for the day. I'm out of here. I'll leave you to it. So, till I see you again. We're drinking beer, we're brewing beer. We're just talking beer. Good brewing.